Hello, I'm State Representative Jim Buchy from the 84th House District. Welcome to Ohio in Focus.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Ohio in Focus, a program that brings state government to you. I'm your host, Brad Miller. Today I'm speaking with State Representative Jim Buchy, who serves the 84th House District, which includes all of Mercer County and parts of Audelaize, Darke, and Shelby counties. Thanks for joining us today, Representative.
Well, Brad, thanks for having me on. I always appreciate a privilege to communicate.
So I mentioned at the top the counties in your district. Obviously, every 10 years the districts change. And yours was no exception. So what's the new district look like?
Well, it's more rectangular from a geographical standpoint. From a people standpoint and an industry standpoint, it mirrors the old district. It is a dominant agricultural district, and quite frankly, it's the #1 ag district in Ohio. Produces between 7 and 8% of total agricultural production receipts in the state every year.
So with the new General Assembly, the 130th General Assembly, you have a new job title, I understand, Assistant Majority Whip. What does this position entail?
Well, I'm a bean counter, first and foremost, because when the Speaker wants to know where the caucus members are on certain issues, he'll ask the Majority Whip and the Assistant Whip to poll the caucus. So that's one of the things I do. And then obviously because I'm involved in the leadership team, the 6 in-house leadership, then we meet on a regular basis to discuss issues and policy and so on.
And you're also a member of 3 standing committees, Rules and Reference, Policy and Legislative Oversight, and Agriculture and Natural Resources. Rules and Reference, briefly explain what that is.
Well, once a representative introduces legislation, it is assigned a number, and then it goes to the floor of the House during a regular session for first reading, and then it's assigned to Rules and Reference Committee, which in turn assigns that bill to one of the 17 permanent standing committees in the House for further consideration. Then once legislation is passed out of committees favorably, they come back to the Rules and Reference Committee, which then determines when that legislation is going to come to the floor of the House for third consideration.
So basically sets the calendar for when these things will come to the House chamber.
Absolutely.
And Policy and Legislative Oversight, is that a new committee, this GA?
Yes, sir, it is a brand new committee, and I'm just very excited to be on this committee. There's a lot of meaty issues we're going to be dealing with.
Can you briefly talk about what some of those issues or topics might be?
Well, currently we're dealing with a very, very big piece of legislation. It's very controversial in House Bill 7, which is dealing with the regulation of internet cafes, which are in most people's eyes, gambling establishments. That's a big one, and then we will deal with voter and election issues and waste and fraud. I mean, there are going to be some big issues that we're going to be involved in, and quite frankly, I'm tickled to be a member of the committee.
So it's going to address the same types of topics, but it's just by a different name. Was there a reason that it was changed names, or is there a reason for these? Well,
of course, the Speaker Batchelder who sets committees. And so it was in his opinion that, and others in leadership, that felt that this committee was needed.
And I also mentioned Ag and Natural Resources Committee, which you would be a natural fit for. You come from the #1 agricultural producing district in Ohio, and you also have a lot of experience in that industry. Can you talk about that?
Well, I'm just an old baloney peddler, Brad. That's of course, I grew up in a meatpacking company, and actually I'm a butcher by trade and a sausage maker. So I've been around the track from an ag business standpoint, and then of course, you know, this is my 11th term in the House, and I've had the privilege of serving on the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee all 11 terms. There is one other thing about the committee is that we deal with natural resource issues. And of course, the 84th House District contains Grand Lake St. Mary's and a lot of natural resources. So that there's lots of issues that we deal with that come through that committee.
And there's currently an issue at Grand Lake St. Mary's that you wanted to discuss. What's the situation there?
Well, of course, that was a man-made lake that's over 150 years old, and over the years, because of the dominance of agriculture and because of residences around the lake and because of some cities on each end of the lake and some villages, that over the period of years there's been a lot of nutrients that have come into the lake, which has caused an issue with algae. And there's been a lot of, in the last few years, there's been some algae blooms which have not been beneficial to the lake from a tourism standpoint, from obviously from an environmental standpoint, and so on. So there's been a lot of emphasis in the last 5 years focused on what can we do to help restore the lake and turn a negative into a positive. So it's a big issue, and of course phosphorus is the main nutrient that causes the rapid growth of algae. All you need is water, phosphorus, and sun, and you're in the algae production. So it's a big issue, and quite frankly, we're trying to do the best we can to set in motion an ongoing plan that will set restoration for years to come.
You've touched on this, but in what ways has the state gotten involved, particularly what is going on in the House?
Sure. Well, currently, for the last 5 years, between local effort, state effort, and federal effort, there's been around $20 million invested in the lake to make it better. Now, we're making progress. We are making progress because the last year or so the lake has been cleaner, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, and quite frankly, there is a local group that is most dedicated to working to put in place that long-range plan for lake restoration, and as well as the state and and the feds, and of course the Ohio Department of Natural Resources is very much involved, as is the EPA and agriculture, to work in concert to make it better.
What would you say would be the next step moving forward, maybe from a legislative standpoint, or what are some things that is going to happen in the near future here in the House or in the state legislature?
Sure. Well, we have in the last General Assembly, we passed legislation to encourage the use of methane digestion in agriculture producing on the farms. The big issue is manure management, and we have a dominance of livestock and poultry production in the watershed. And the Grand Lake watershed is basically Mercer County and Auglaize County, which is in my district. Mm-hmm. And so we've encouraged the producers to look at ways to keep the nutrients more local, and so that's one thing we've done. And obviously there've been the monetary investments. They've put the chemical alum on the lake for the last couple of years, which helps suppress any algae growth. But then there's another thing we have done. We have added algae to the definition of agriculture, with the idea that in the future, methane digesters on the farm, as they utilize the manure on the farm to turn into methane gas, which runs turbines, which creates electricity to run the farms and excess to go on the grid for public consumption and so on. By growing algae right in concert next to the methane digesters, that will absorb the phosphorus. See, methane digestion, when you're done processing the manure into natural gas and electricity, you still have all the nutrients left in the wastewater. So what we're trying to do is utilize that wastewater on the farm so that it will not get on the ground and in the streams and tributaries that go to the lake. And this technology hopefully will not only help the Grand Lake St. Mary's situation, but it'll also help at least 20 other lakes in the state currently having an algae problem, plus the western basin of Lake Erie, which is having an algae issue. So hopefully that's a huge tool that we've given agriculture to address that particular situation. And then there's, we're looking at all kinds of ways we can help that.
Another big issue, obviously, in Ohio is Governor John Kasich's budget proposal, which he introduced at the beginning of February, and that has now made its way into the House Finance Committee. He addressed a lot of the subjects in his recent State of the State address. What was your initial reaction to his budget proposal?
Well, first off, Governor Kasich is one of 5 governors that I've had the privilege of working with, and he is just a standout. He's a visionary, and he has a plan to get. This is all about job creation. And when he was sworn in 2011, he came in with an agenda to grow Ohio's economy. There's no reason why Ohio shouldn't be the #1 state of the 50 in the United States. And his track record so far, Brad, is showing that we're moving in that direction. So from specifically in this particular budget, he's got some interesting and some exciting proposals in there that are being given a lot of deliberations.
Where is the process currently?
Well, of course, all budgets emanate from the governor to the House of Representatives. So currently, House Bill 59, which is the bill number of the budget, is in the Finance and Appropriations Committee and having hearings.
Moving onward, I understand you are having a legislative survey, conducting a legislative survey might be a better way of saying it, that you hope your constituents will take a few moments to fill out. What do you hope to gain from this survey?
Well, the survey that I'm conducting right now relates to the issues that we're dealing with in the budget. So I obviously want to hear and read what my constituents, the people I work for, what they have to say and their opinions on the budget that will help me make decisions. As the budget works through the process, I like to know what the people I work for think.
And we're going to have the link to that survey on the bottom of the screen, but what are some other ways that people can access the survey? Is this available through Facebook and so forth?
Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, all that. Now, if you want my website, Brad, you look behind my water heater, and you think about that one. No, we're up to speed on this. You know, my family had a business once upon a time that we just sold in December of 2012, but my father was a visionary, and we had our first computer in 1960. So the technology age is obviously progressed quite a bit since that time, but and my father passed away in 1983, but if he were here today, he'd just be grinning at all the technological advances. So as I learn about all these things you young people know about, why I'm having a lot of fun with it, but it's instant communication, and I'm excited about it because it helps me get information faster so I can make decisions that are smarter than I used to years ago. So I'm excited about that. So you can access us like it's tiny URL. I think that's on the screen right now. I mean, I have Jim Buchy at embarkmail.com. And that's B-U-C-H-Y, and it's because it's tough. You don't get Beaky out of B-U-C-H-Y, but that's the way it is. And so, phone number is 614-466-6344. I mean, we're accessible, and I like to return my calls and our emails just as soon as we can, and it just helps me so much to work better.
We certainly hope the water heater doesn't spring a leak.
That's right.
Well, Representative,
thank you.
Taking some time sitting down with us today.
Thanks, Brad. It's my privilege and pleasure.
We look forward to seeing you again on the next edition of Ohio in Focus, the program that brings state government to you. Thank you for joining us.